our intention is to talk about feed efficiency. And as you think of feed efficiency, it's a simple measurement of units inputs versus output and how efficient are we using resources in commercial production. And it's a very simple measurement. However, when we put more items to that questions, we start to see that we need to separate or categorize what do we mean with feed efficiency. Are we meaning the amount of feed per unit of live body weight? That would be efficiency of growth. Or are we meaning the amount of feed per unit of carcass growth or efficiency of pork production? Or are we meaning the amount of energy that the animal consumes versus the amount of carcass that is produced? And that would be energetic efficiency. And back in 2012, John Patient gave a talk here at the Leman conference where he was organizing the feed efficiency symposium with a group at K-State, and put a nice quote from Steve Ballman saying that feed efficiency is a good thing to measure, but a terrible driver for decision. And the way I can see that is a terrible driver for decision is because depending on what your goal is, you may need to measure different items. These are an example of 4 diets with corn DDGS, corn soybean meal, wheat meatlings, corn DDGS, and wheat meatlings and corn DDGS. And we can see that on a live weight basis, which would be the red line, the red bars, we don't see a change in feed efficiency. However, on the yellow bars, which will be the hot carcass weight per pound of feed, then we see that actually that decreases, and as we all know, that decreases because of the decrease in carcass yield. So if you are selling pigs like we do here in North America on a carcass weight basis, therefore feed efficiency would be a terrible driver for us to really pursue. Now in other latitudes, I know the Leman conference is getting more international, where maybe people sell pigs on a live weight basis, maybe okay to use feed efficiency expressed as amount of feed per live weight of the animal. Now, one of the things that I wanted to do is to look into where we are now and what are some trends. So I look at the data from MetaFarms. MetaFarms collect data from multiple farms in the United States, multiple production systems, and they summarize and release, or they have quarterly release. And I'm comparing here the quarter 2 from 2015 to the quarter 2 2016. And on feed efficiency, we've seen a 2.85 in 2015 compared with a 2.83 now in 2016, or for Q2 2016. So some improvement in feed efficiency over the last year. That's where we are now for commercial situations, but where could we in the future? So PIC very kindly shared some data with me from a boar feed intake records of nucleus farms. These are 12 months data of what this nucleus farm, boars have been doing in this nucleus farm. And it's an indicator of what sires in the commercial farms will do in the future. We have 4 commercial lines of these, and we can see that on average they go to 12.15 to 195 feed to gain conversion. And if you were to take some selective pressure or select 10% of that group, that number can drop as low as 175 to 1.55. So there is a lot of room for improvement on the effect of feed efficiency. Data that they collect from their own customers indicates that feed conversion in the past year also has improved. And interestingly though enough that they have been able to see an improvement in feed efficiency in spite of increasing market weights. So on the blue line will be market weights, and on the red bars would be the amount of, or the measured feed efficiency that they have observed. And we can see that in spite of heavier body weights, they have been able to see an improvement in feed efficiency. However, feed efficiency depends on many factors. And I'm not going to get into the details of how to calculate these factors. I think Dr. Gritz will be making maybe more of the applied side, but I want to give you more of the biology or more of the conceptual knowledge of how feed efficiency can be modified. So, and I split those two in animal components and feed side components. On the animal science components, we all know that age, sex, genetics, and health modify feed efficiency. And the reason, the one item that I think, or that really puts them all together, is the efficiency of growth or lean growth in the animal. And this graph summarizes that for me simply. So, if we see what is in feed, feed contains carbohydrate, lipids, amino acids, minerals, vitamins, and water. And the most expensive part of the feed is energy. Energy is not a nutrient, but animals derive energy from nutrients. And the three nutrients that derive energy would be protein, carbohydrates, and lipids. The animal use protein, carbohydrate, and lipids during a digestive process, intermediate metabolism, to a final deposition here on the pig side. And the animal can use the energy for deposition of protein, which drive deposition of water or deposition of lean tissue, and deposition of fat. And I want to drive your attention to the coefficients here on the top, 4 and 1 for deposition of protein and deposition of lipids. And what this indicates is that the efficiency of deposition of protein is 4.4, and it's because it drives the deposition of water. And therefore, the efficiency, feed efficiency, becomes much greater when the animal is using protein for protein deposition. As the animal, for example, goes to use protein for fat deposition, then that coefficient drops dramatically. So, for one end, lean growth rate dictates a vast majority of what would be the feed efficiency of the animal. As the second item would be basal metabolic rate, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But think about, of all the differences that we know about feed efficiency, of sex, gender, age, almost are driven by this concept of animal putting more lean growth rate or putting more lean muscle. Therefore, lean growth rate dictates a lot of what is going to be the feed efficiency on the biological side of the animal. However, on the feed components, there are also items, and on the same graph we can see the same thing, because if the animal is going to use feed components or protein for lipid deposition, then that efficiency drops dramatically. Therefore, depending on the composition of the ingredient or the composition of the diet that the animal is consuming, efficiency of the energy utilization changes. And not only changes based on the composition, but in the total amount of energy. So if we think about net energy, and we have dietary concentration of net energy here on the x-axis, and on the y, feed conversion ratio, yes, as the animal consumes more energy, there is a decrease in amount of feed per unit of gain. And a general rule of thumb that I think the group at K-State is always very good at putting this rule of thumb, for example, 1% fat can increase feed conversion ratio by about 2%. So the more energy that we put in the diet, the animal will become more efficient, or we have greater feed efficiency. And part of that is also a change in feed intake. As animals or amount of energy in the diet increases, then feed intake of the animal can be adjusted. and animals will respond, decreasing feed intake to a total and caloric intake. That depends also on the age of the animal. If you compare the slope of these younger pigs, it's smaller than the slope of what we see for the older pigs, meaning that older pigs have greater ability, have more gut fill capacity, and therefore more ability to adjust feed intake. Particle size reduction also improves feed intake because of reduction of particle size increases the surface area that enzymes will have contact with, and therefore by having greater contact with the particles or with the feed, then we improve digestibility of nutrients. And these are classical data from WONDRA, and I think any paper that writes about feed efficiency goes back to WONDRA's data, and we can see that there is from a reduction of 1,000 microns all the way to 400 microns, there is an improvement in feed efficiency from 3.99 all the way to 3.23. And recent survey conducted by Josh Floor was able to see that most of the people in the United States, these are particle size that the survey was asking people what particle size were they grinding feed to, and most of them are around the 700 to 500 microns. That model may change depending on certain conditions. Again, as different conditions can be applied under different markets or different situations, we need to think of energy consumption of energy in the rate of feed of production. The next item that I want to spend some time now talking is about efficiency of utilization of energy for different purposes. And out of the feed efficiency conferences, one of the goals is to increase the proportion of gross energy that the animal all the way utilizes for production purposes. And you can do two things. You can improve the proportion of gross energy that is actually digested, and with some ingredients that will be different. And you can increase the proportion of energy that is actually after metabolizable energy that is actually put for production. And at the University of Minnesota, we've been working mainly on the digestibility and characterizing how can we predict the digestibility of energy, and how can we characterize well the digestibility of fiber to have a measurement of energy production. So if you look at corn and look at the gross energy in corn, it's not very different from many other feed ingredients. However, if you look at the ratio between gross energy and net energy, again the proportion of energy that the animal is using for production, for corn, the ratio is 0.68. For even a very poorly digestible ingredient like wheat straw, that would be 6%. And with that, I'm not saying that we're going to feed wheat straw, but we are using this as a model for understanding fiber. And the reason is that traditionally, the way that we analyze in the past feed ingredients, we've always seen what I put here as a black box, dietary fiber. We used to have even crude fiber measurements, and it's a lump of many carbohydrates that we don't know exactly how they behave or what do they do in the GI tract of the pig. So if you were to calculate, for example, in a co-product like dried distillers grains with soluble, the amount of energy that the animal gets from the different components of the diet, in the case of ether extract and NDF, so fat and NDF are the single most variable factors that contribute to energy. Therefore, if we want to improve our precision of predicting energy in feed ingredients, one of the ones that we have done the least work is on predicting fiber digestibility and in predicting fat digestibility, because it varies from source to source. And in the past, one of the things that we have done to ameliorate the effect on carcass yield when we feed dietary fiber is withdrawal of or withdrawal of the feed or withdrawal of the fiber material from the last phases of production. We have also predicted the digestibility of fiber using an in vitro procedure, and many of these issues that we think of with fiber is that we don't know exactly what portion of fiber or what characteristics of fiber trigger the change in carcass yield, or triggers the change in feed efficiency, or triggers the change in energy digestibility. We have used an in vitro procedure to really predict digestibility of the fiber, and when we test that digestibility of fiber with gut histology and looking at mucin production and number of goblet cells, which are the ones producing mucin, as a way to predict what will be the requirement for threonine even, we see that among all these different type of fiber, they are all insoluble type of fibers. We get very different amount of goblet cells. And that amount of goblet cells is not correlated with digestibility of fiber. Before I show you that wheat straw has the least fermentable fiber, DDGS has an intermediate fermentable fiber, and soybean hulls has the highest fermentable fiber. And it's not predicting what could be the potential goblet cell numbers, and therefore predicting what could be the potential threonine requirement and what could be the potential effect on carcass yield. In other words, when we feed an amount of NDF, and all these animals were fed to a similar amount of NDF, we can very poorly predict what would be that outcome in the animal. And therefore, we can very poorly predict what would be the energy maintenance of those animals and what would be the requirements for specific amino acids, for example, threonine. So one goal that we are trying to work on is to what components of that fiber really change the efficiency of energy utilization and what change goblet cell formation. If you're looking for more information, I think that on the practical side, there were very good tests by Aaron Gain in the feed efficiency book, and many of the presentations were put together on a website from the National Program of Swine Feed Efficiency.